You're listening to Faces of Our Cities. I'm your host, Jesse. Today, we're back talking with Anna Trammell. Anna recorded an interview with us almost 2 years ago. It's out already on the podcast. So if you want to go back and you want to listen to her background and where she got to where she was 2 years ago, you are welcome to go and do that. And I definitely recommend that because she's got a lot of really awesome life hacks, life cheat codes, some lessons that she learned in that first year of being an entrepreneur. And today we're back talking with her because we want to check in on how that road has been going. Anna, thank you so much for joining us again. Can you just jump right into it? What has happened in the last 2 years with Annulette? What's been going on with the business? I think you just launched, right? I'm going to let you tell us what's been going on.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me on the podcast again. It's an honor to be here. The last 2 years have been very eventful, as you could imagine. With the business, we did just recently launch in Q4 of 2023, right before Christmas, which was a goal of mine. So I was very happy to hit that. Over the past 2 years with Raya, we were working on manufacturing, and that was the focus for majority of the time. Of course, we were planning on launching and getting ready for sales and getting all of our online accounts set up, making sure that the website's ready and the TikTok is integrated. And we haven't worked with Amazon yet, but that's on the table for later. So we really had a hard time with manufacturing. I know I mentioned it in the last podcast that the manufacturing has been more difficult than patenting the product, which has been a very big surprise to me. But the manufacturing took a left turn whenever we first received our initial production round. And, working for years on this with our manufacturer and our project management team, our suppliers, there's so many moving parts going on. And we thought that we had everything just right. The shipment is delivered from India to Houston in it was October 2021, I think. And it was a complete fail. There was an issue with the beads, and the entire shipment I couldn't sell it. I could not sell it. It was not up to the quality that we needed, even though we had hired a third party to do a QC test in India with the manufacturer. Our manufacturer looked at it. I thought that we had checked off everything.
Can you tell us what was wrong with the bead?
The beads that we had didn't stand the test of time, and they started to kind of disintegrate. The plating that was around them just was not high quality. It was my first stab at jewelry making, because as much as this is a hair tie, it's a piece of jewelry. You wear it around the wrist like a bracelet, and these little beads are used frequently. They're pushed in and out of the material of the Annulette, and they started to chip, and the logo was warped. Some of the beads themselves, the shape of them were warped. They weren't the right size that we had asked for them to be. It was just a really hard lesson to learn.
That had to be devastating.
Oh yeah. When it first was delivered and I opened up the first box and pulled out the first Annulette, of course, I'm so excited that they're finally here. We've been working for years. It was just an idea in my head, and now it's reality, and we're about to go into sales. And I open it up and I look at it, and it was this moment of just terror. And I closed the box. I didn't look at it for a week. I couldn't deal with it.
No. Wow.
Oof. Yeah.
Oh,
So there was a lot of problem solving. That was my first really big fire. I will say the silver lining was that we had not launched yet. So there were not that many people expecting their product to be shipped, or there wasn't a big campaign around it. And it was partly because I wasn't feeling so comfortable with doing that yet. It was that thought in my head of, well, what if something is awry and it requires a little more time before it's perfect. So that was the silver lining. Luckily I have a fantastic manufacturer. We have really great rapport. This is a lesson. Always keep great rapport with whoever you're working with. If something goes south, maintain your integrity, because my manufacturer and my project management team were very helpful in resolving the issue. There was no big blow up. There was no pointing of fingers or blame. It was pretty equally decided that, at this point we could have done this. We need to fix this. We're going to do third party testing on the beads. We're going to find a new supplier, and we're going to be more methodical in our approach. They decided that they would replace the production round. We had to do a deal so that it was still beneficial to my manufacturer and they weren't completely losing money. So I was happy to meet them halfway there. And we got great beads now. They're really high quality. Of course, more expensive, but you just have to pay. You have to pay sometimes. They are really nice. Sterling silver. It's upcycled because everything that Raya does is trying to support sustainability. And so it's upcycled sterling silver, cadmium free, nickel free, lead free, third party tested. I made sure I crossed off every box.
tell me about the experience of opening that second production round. When the boxes came, did you leave the boxes sit for a week just in case you weren't ready for it, or did you rip the box open feeling like, all right, this time? Like, how was the experience the second time around?
The second time around, I felt so confident, very eager, very excited, because my team in India knew what the expectations were. And every single person was on it. They were astute in their approach. And I found them to be more communicative. Even with some of these little marks that were on the beads, my manufacturer reached out to me immediately. So I felt confident that they were on it. And then we did our quality control check, which we run on all of our production rounds. And so by the time those boxes arrived, I felt like we had crossed our I's and dotted our T's. So I was very excited. And whenever I opened it, it was just this big sigh of relief.
When was that?
That was end of October of 2023. So just a few months ago. Mhm.
Okay, the time between first production round and second production round, how much time was that?
There's actually been three, but the initial one that was failed, there was a little over a year gap. The lead time for finding a new supplier and sending it back and forth between India, shipments, communication, it took a good amount of time. So it was about 3 or 4 months sourcing the beads themselves, and then a few more weeks getting them made, and then a few more months getting the amulettes made, because they're also made by hand. So it's not the fastest process. There's all these steps, and then you have to go through customs clearance and all of our testing that we do before it's shipped. And so it was a full year and a little extra.
Okay, so now you finally have a product that you can actually sell and feel comfortable selling to people, and that came in October-ish. Throughout that time, I mean, that's a whole year probably that you really were not anticipating. I mean, you can be honest with us. Were you like, no, I'm all in on this, however long it takes, or like, I feel like after 6 months I would have been like, I don't think this is worth it, but but you've got a lot of time invested already. So how were you throughout that process? Did you feel like giving up? Did you give up? Did you go on vacation and take a breath and a break away from it? What'd you do?
Oh, after wallowing in my disappointment for some time, I just got to the mindset of acceptance that I knew that it was going to take at least a year. The lead time was inevitable. So I got to acceptance with that. And I just had a lot of grace with myself where I knew that there's nothing I could do to rush it. And if I tried to rush it, I would just be stressing myself out. I definitely felt disappointed. And I sat with that and I worked on practices so that I could move that energy and let it be expressed and not let it get me down. So I will say I've gotten much, much better at handling disappointment and just realizing that, I did the best that I could and it's not going to launch in the time that I wanted it to, but I am spiritual in the sense that I feel like things happen in the time that they're meant to. And I looked for the other side of the coin because there's always duality in life. And there's something just goes south while another thing is going north. So I I took the time to center myself, think about the business as a whole a little more, think about the direction I want the business to go. It gave me more time to think about other product lines, what our growth strategy can be. It gave me more time to work on a thought process for our launch. It I started to fill the time with creating. And there were some things that I hadn't gotten done that I really would have liked to have gotten done before October 2021. And so it gave me the opportunity to do those. And I did take vacations. Absolutely. I spent my time working on other projects that I had been wanting to do, and I just tried to not stay down about it for as long as I needed to, which is hard as a perfectionist because as a perfectionist whenever something doesn't go right, it really is a thorn in my side. But humbling nonetheless. And I'm getting the hang of what they say entrepreneurship is about, which is trial and failure and just getting back up again and keeping going. In the last podcast, I know I said I was most proud of just still working on this. There were many times that I could have quit. There were many times where I could have just been like, ugh, it's too much. It's more than I thought it was going to be. It's this monster that's like growing tentacles every day and ways that I have to morph as a person and shoes that I have to fill. And it's the whole analogy of you climb one mountain and then you're at the beginning of the next mountain and it's just going and going. And I've had to center myself and understand why I'm doing it and find the things that I really do like about it at the same time as having the frustrations about the things that I'm not so good at yet. I feel like I'm always a beginner. Like going through the manufacturing stage, I felt like I got kind of good at manufacturing. And then as soon as we finally get the product done and it's brilliant and it's fantastic, and I'm like, yes, I nailed it. Now I've got to start sales. And so I have to morph into this other archetype of the saleswoman to sell the product that I made. And it's constant, but I do enjoy the thrill of having to push myself. It is competitive. I've been in sports for a long time and it is competitive in that you have to just like keep going, keep going, keep going, celebrate the wins, and then also take the losses.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's incredible. Whenever I like see something that you post on social, I do think like this is what makes an entrepreneur, and it's whether you keep on going or not, right? And mostly because I'm like, wow, she's still going. There's a very select few that have the perseverance and the endurance to go through the journey like you've been going through. I'd be really curious to know how many entrepreneurs have had to endure what you have, right? It's not the same as just starting a marketing agency where everything is digital, right? Like you're creating a real product, you're going and manufacturing something. Like the mountains you've had to overcome are so much different than a lot of other entrepreneurs. So just a mad shout out to you. In case no one's done that recently, like amazing, really awesome, and thank you for sharing your journey so far. So now it's out. Is it online? Where is it? Are you selling in stores? Are you just selling like through your website? You said Amazon's not up yet.
It's online on our website, and then we're working with social media, of course, because it's retail. And so TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and we're doing some influencer marketing and trying to build that up. It's very much in its infancy, and yeah, trying to work with sales and funnel, get our email
Yeah.
marketing up, that whole
I
system.
mean, this is like the easy part, right? Like for you, you've got a marketing background, but what experiences in this part have been surprising you, despite having been a marketer before this?
It's harder to market your own product than it is to market other people's. um, it's a very interesting experience because this is a product that I conceived from the very beginning of it just being an idea all the way through it being in the real world as a product on the market. And that has been a challenge just for me personally because I have had to overcome so many hurdles and then still continue to believe in myself. And I am stubborn, which has served me and sometimes been a thorn in my side. I just envisioned it and was like, I'm going to keep going and I know that this is going to take off. And my husband says he's an experienced entrepreneur and now investor. And he always says anything of size or importance takes 10 years to really get it going. It takes that long before it starts to fruit. And I hang on to that because I'm getting close to that 10-year mark.
I feel like that's a really
uh,
good husband to have in your corner, right? Like, oh no, I assumed this was going to take 10 years already. I wasn't looking for a 2-year return.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It gives me hope. So I'm like, okay, I've got to get this going in the next 3 years. But the sales and marketing has been this portal that I had been hoping to go through since the time that I first had the idea for this product. And now I feel like I myself am having to adjust to being in the sales role. And that is a different mindset than what I've been in. I was kind of so, you know, how they talk about entrepreneurs being laser focused on working on the business that they sometimes don't come up for perspective of what it looks like to other people. And I'm
Sure.
coming up for perspective, and it's a nice change of view. Um, and it's also not leaving behind the manufacturing because we're already working on R&D for another product. So I still will always have my foot in the creative side, but now I'm enjoying talking about the product. And part of it too is being on podcasts and PR, like what we're doing right now. It's the fun of sharing my journey and what it's taken to bring the Annulette into our reality, and it's sharing the story, which I think is the best way to sell anything, because people want to see the complete picture and not just the
Absolutely.
5 second snippet on Instagram. So this really is where I love to be. I love to share
Yeah.
behind the curtain, because I feel like that's where all the depth is.
Absolutely. We may not realize it right away based on our consumer behaviors, right? Like I go and I'll buy chips without knowing what's behind the brand, right? But at some point, I'll hear something and I'll buy it because of that, right? And yeah, people care about the story, and really that's what building a brand is about, right? And even though you're focused on selling your product, at some point you're going to be focused on building the brand as a whole, and people want to know how hard it was. They don't want they would ultimately they would rather buy a product from you knowing that you put all of your energy into it and overcame so much to get here versus just buying a product that like Procter and Gamble threw like $100 million at and figured it out and it has no story behind it. I think you're right. Like it's people care, and I'm really glad that we're getting to capture this with you right now. I do have one quick question before we get into the other half of this podcast, and that is I don't think I asked you last time where the word Annulette came from or how you decided to name Annulette. I know that we dug into why it's called RayahHair and the logo of that and like how that was all designed, but the Annulette, where did that come from? Is that a normal word in the beauty industry? Am I clueless? What is that?
It is not a normal word. I actually made it and I trademarked it, the word itself.
Oh,
The word Annulette, it's spelled Annulette. It came after I actually it was a second name for this product. The first name was Annie Ty. That was the first name that I came up with during conception. It was just, I have this idea. What am I going to call it? I'll just call it this. It incorporated my name and it was a hair tie. And as I went along in the process, I decided I needed to change the name because I didn't want the word tie in the product name, because I don't see it as a hair tie per se. Granted, you say hair tie, everyone understands what the usage is for. I call it a hair holder just because hair ties are circular. So you'll see the black hair ties or the spiral hair ties that look like a 90s shoelace, or the 80s scrunchie, which is a hair tie. And I was like, it's not your run of the mill hair tie. It's something different. It's more in a category of its own because it's a premium product too. It's handcrafted. These are high quality materials. This is real sterling silver. It's a piece of jewelry. And so I wanted to figure out how to kind of keep the same beginning of the word, since I had already been talking to people about it and they were used to calling it an Annie tie, but change it so that it sounded a little bit more refined and it really sounded like a premium luxury quality product. And also it's like a bracelet, so the end of bracelet and Annulette I felt paired well together. So I pulled out the dictionary and was looking up words, and I thought of the amulets that you wear around your neck. And I was like, okay, kind of maybe something like that, but how can I change it? And then I found a word called Annulette, but spelled differently. And it's a circular design piece that's used in flags. It was used in the early 1800s, the Roman Empire, where it was these amulets just put on columns. And I was like, that's really
Okay.
pretty. It sounds kind of more like a older word, and that's what took on. And then I decided to trademark it.
Nice. Cool. I love that. I'm glad that I got that tidbit from you, because yeah, I can't believe we breezed over that last time.
Yeah, I've had more time to think about it now.
Yeah. Okay, let's get into the second half. You've shared a lot of lessons already that you've learned, but just in the last 2 years, if you could leave our audience with either one or two or 17 life hacks or life cheat codes, maybe that you've been using yourself in the last year or two, maybe for stress management. What would you give to us? What would you share with the listeners?
The first thing that comes to mind is that I'm speaking with people, and just the human behind anything is the generator for whatever product or project that they're wanting to work on. So the human, whew, that is the most important thing to focus on, I feel like, in trying to go and achieve anything. And there's so many layers, so many layers. I myself in my journey have found that if something's not going well in my business, it's because I'm missing something. I'm not aware of something. I have a belief system that tells me that I can't do something. And so I would say, for anyone working on anything, never underestimate the importance of just going on the journey of trying to find out who you are and how your brain works and what you really like. Oh my gosh, that's a huge one. I'll share this. In the past year, I have had the honor of working with different coaches. So Mama Gina is one, and she works on unleashing the beauty in the feminine and what that looks like in different mediums. Um, and she teaches these practices in how to work with your community and other people to cultivate your desires. And she likes to use the word desires instead of want, because I feel like whenever we talk about wanting something, it feels like, I don't know, I just don't like the word wanting. Like, to be in the state of wanting, that seems like a desperate kind of feeling. And it shifts it to, what do you desire? What do you care about? What moves you? What sits in your stomach? And if you have a conversation about it, it feels settled. And the last podcast I talked about brain surgeons not doing brain surgery on themselves, and that you're not supposed to go through anything in life alone. Anything. And the way that this practice works is that you go through it with people. You talk to people about what you desire, about what you care about, what you're grateful for, what you're good at, being able to brag on your skill sets and really feel like, you know what, I'm good at this. I don't have to lie and say, oh, I'm kind of, but they're better at this than me, or I'm okay, but I really messed up here. And granted, we can have a dose of humility to know where we need to improve, but I find that really focusing on community and sharing our desires with our community is magic. Like there's something so special with talking to someone, a group of friends, your significant other. I'm not always going to say talk to your family about it because sometimes you don't need to talk to your family about it. Like know who's going to support you and give you the benefit of the doubt and see the good in you, because there's always good in every single person. And like you want to talk to people about these things that's going to see that for you and going to say, yeah, you can do that. Absolutely. It doesn't matter if they're going to question how you do it. It's just somebody that's like, you know what? Yeah, you can do that. I believe in you. Keep going. It doesn't have to be more than that, but it's, find a community that supports you. My biggest takeaway from last year is the importance of depth in relationships, because going through entrepreneurship alone is part of the reason why it's taken so long, and why the journey has been more difficult for me than I think if I had a partner that was equally invested in this business. And so my community that I've built and I continue to build and nurture, I mean, it takes work. But it's the most valuable aspect, I would say, in my life. It continues to surprise me where I might be going through just a really tough day, and one of my friends will reach out to me and they're like, "Hey, how are you doing?" And they'll know automatically if I'm just like, "Yeah, I'm fine," but I'm not fine. And I can get on a call with them and talk through it. And by the time the call's over, I'm ready to get back to work.
Yeah. Can I ask? You have obviously your own way of having built that community. I mean, it's once you get past your 30s, we all know that it's hard to like make friends in general, right? Like either you like have kids and you become friends with all the other kids that go to school, or the parents that go to school with your kids, or maybe you play a sport. But any like hard recommendations or like that you would give to say either entrepreneurs or just people later on in life about how to build that community? Where do you find them? Where do you go for it? And what are some steps that people can take, or that you took to find them? And did you just like, go up to someone and be like, "You, me, it's time for us to be part of a group together. Like I need my like what is it, the sisterhood of the traveling pants?" Did you just flat out say that to someone, or did it happen naturally for you and you just got lucky?
I'm amused that this question is coming from you because you do networking, you do community, I feel like, so well. So it's fun to be chatting with you about this because I feel like you have such an easy time connecting and relating with people. I would say for finding community, A, it takes the intention, and B, it takes the effort. Community is not going to come to anyone without them putting the effort in. It is both sides showing up, scheduling lunch meetings, scheduling calls. There is effort put into it. And you can go about it as a lone ranger and just kind of reach out to random people. And sometimes that works for people, because everyone's designed differently. Other people really need to be in a space in person, and I think this is a lot of people, they need to actually see someone, be in the same room together. I mean, it's so magical whenever people can get in the same room, we're in the same aura field, we can see the micro expressions, we can really sense. I mean, we are sensory beings, and we pick up on each other's energy whenever we're in the same space together, much more than if we're just on a call or on a video chat. So, finding places to connect with people that have similar interests. And I'm a huge fan of retreats. The reason being is whenever you are with a set of people day in and day out for multiple days on end, there's a bond that forms that you don't get whenever you're just tapping in for coffee once a month. So if you really want to grow those roots and find your tribe, you do have to spend some days in an intense setting where you're also learning together. I mean, you can go on a retreat for anything, and there's a magic to whenever people are going through a intense learning process. Also, if people are going through a process that requires challenge, because there's this camaraderie that naturally happens between people who have similar interests and are also working through pain points together. It's like this beautiful aspect of being human that empathizes with the other. And even though you're both going through something, you can be resilient and support each other in becoming better people and closer.
Thank you for that. I think your point about it requiring effort, so many people just wish that they had the community, right? But it requires you to put in a phone call, right? And you see it so much, right? Like so many people willing to just give up on someone who hasn't called them. Well, if they're not in your life, maybe they aren't worth it. And it's like, I mean, it's okay to make the phone call. Like, I love making the phone call. I haven't heard from someone in years. I will text them out of the blue. I didn't text them either. If someone hasn't texted me back after I text them 10 times, then yeah, then I might be like, hey, is something wrong? Should we not be friends anymore? Right? Like I'm putting all this effort in, and it's obvious that you don't even want the love that I'm willing to share. Um, but you got to be willing to give it first, right? Don't just take, and don't expect to take before you give. Usually works the opposite. You mentioned working with coaches. How have you found your coaches? Can you talk about that?
Great question. Finding the right coach is kind of like almost anything else in life. You've just got to try. I would say never let the fear of finding the wrong one stop you. Do as much research as, if I were giving advice, I would say do as much research as you feel like you need to do. And then check in with your gut if you start communicating with somebody. And if what they're saying is striking a chord with you, and sometimes it's got to be making you feel uncomfortable where it actually is the right connection. My first coach that I worked with really challenged me, really challenged me. His name's Andrew Finnefrock. And we first connected on Facebook, and he had responded to one of my posts and was interested in asking me questions and inquiring on why I thought in a certain way. And he was challenging my belief system and challenging my thought process, and I hadn't had someone doing that directly. a lot of people don't like that. They don't want to be challenged. But for me at the time, I was looking for it. At other times in my life, maybe that would not have worked for me. So it's very much a timing thing. But then when we were speaking, Andrew and I needed to be stopped in my tracks so that I could change direction. And he gave that to me and helped me process ways to think through the hangups that I was dealing with around past traumas and things that I felt ashamed of, or things that I felt like I was a victim of, and helped me get past that victimhood, because it's very limiting. Um, Other teachers that I've worked with are Sadhguru. I love how concise he is in the way that he articulates a point. There's many quotes that I could go into from him, but if anyone is interested in just hearing a philosopher, he's wonderful. I have worked with different therapists. I think that it's fantastic to work one-on-one with people. I do like, it's that human connection, the interaction, the diving deep into a subject. And sometimes friendships are fantastic, but they're not going to reroute your thinking. If someone's working with a therapist, friendships will not reroute, but a therapist will. So that's a refreshing point of view. And I kind of dabble in these things whenever I feel like I need them. And if I feel like I've had enough, I stop. I don't have to continue to work on myself as if I'm a problem. But if I'm thinking, it's kind of like working out. If I want to gain muscle and I've learned how to bodybuild and like do isometric movements, but now I want to learn warrior arts and primal movements and a different way to use my body, I am going to hire somebody to teach me that technique. So, and then once I get the technique, I can do it on my own. But like, I know whenever to reach out. And then whenever I'm like, you know what, I've gathered what I need to.
Love that. Thank you. Thank you so much for that and offering all those recommendations. I've taken up a ton of your time, and I'm so thankful that you've given so much of your time for us to catch up and talk about this, talk about where the business is going and how it's been. The Annulette is out on the market. People can go check it out. People can get their hands on it. And thank you for sharing so much of your life and the ups and downs that you've encountered. I think it is really helpful for our audience, whoever they are, to know that it's not all rainbows and sunshine in the entrepreneur life. And there have been plenty of times where you could have given up, and maybe for a day you decided to take a break, but you kept on going. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for sharing it.
Thank you, Jesse. This was fantastic. I always enjoy chatting with you and seeing where in the world each other are at. And I look forward to catching up. Hopefully, in a few years, I have got big updates and sales are going fantastic. And who knows what I'll have learned by then. So I'm always happy to share more as I gather different information.
I hope you've learned so much, but I hope the path to learning those things is not super painful. But I know they have to be for you to learn. So here's to learning a bunch and it not being too painful of a process.
Yes, yeah. Here's to learning, but making it fun learning. Who knows what a year or two will bring.
Yeah, absolutely.